Can you still hear the steady rhythm of keys clacking, the ding of reaching the end of a line, or the satisfying snap as you pressed the carriage return? Long before screens glowed and keyboards clicked in silence, the trusty typewriter was a companion to dreamers, workers, and storytellers alike. In the mid-1980s, typewriters bridged the gap between tradition and innovation, balancing the unmistakable tactile sensation of each keystroke with new features like correction tape and sleek electric hums. Whether you were typing up college reports, family newsletters, or your child's very first poem, each page carried the faint scent of ink, the texture of crisp paper, and the memory of focused afternoons. Do you remember weighting your fingers on those sturdy keys or the gentle frustration of a stubborn jam? For many, a typewriter meant more than words. It was a portal to self-expression, discipline, and pride in every perfect line. As we look back at these remarkable machines, what stories linger in those faded ribbons and well-worn manuals? Let's rediscover the magic of the 80s typewriter era and see how its legacy still echoes through our lives today. Step back in time for a moment to when typewriters weren't just office equipment, they were testaments to ingenuity and the promise of progress. By the 1980s, the typewriter had already been part of the American landscape for well over a century, but the machines gracing office desks and kitchen tables were heirs to a long, fascinating history of evolution and adaptation. When you sat down at your trusty Smith-Corona or IBM Selectric, you were joining a tradition stretching back to the late 1800s. Yet the 1980s marked a truly pivotal era, a bridge between the mechanical past and the computer-driven future. How did we arrive there, and why did the typewriters of this decade feel like such a satisfying blend of old and new? The story of the modern typewriter begins in the 1860s when inventors like Christopher Latham Scholes wrestled with the challenge of bringing words to the page more quickly and efficiently than pen and ink. The early machines looked a bit like Gothic sewing machines, heavy, ornate, and sometimes slow, but they changed the world of business and communication forever. Through the decades, ingenuity marched forward. The introduction of the QWERTY keyboard in the late 19th century was a direct response to problems users had with early models jamming. Did you know that the QWERTY layout we know so well today was specifically designed to slow typists down just enough to keep those stubborn keys from locking up? It's a curious bit of history, a flaw that became standard for generations. It wasn't until the post-war era that typewriters became true household staples. In the 1950s and 60s, companies like Royal, Remington, and Underwood vied for dominance, each offering sleeker, lighter, and ever more reliable models. By the time the 1980s rolled around, typewriters had made their way out of the steno pool and into homes and classrooms. For many, their first encounter with a typewriter was at school, fingers hovering over cool, black keys during a typing test with a stern-faced instructor timing every word. Can you remember the sense of satisfaction when you first typed a full sentence without a mistake, the bell signaling it was time to slide the carriage back and begin again? But history never stands still, and the 1980s saw typewriters at a crossroads. While older generations still cherished their sturdy manual machines, manufacturers responded to a changing world with fresh ideas and new technology. Electric typewriters, first introduced as early as the 1920s, but not widespread until the 60s and 70s, rapidly gained popularity. By the 1980s, brands like IBM, Brother, and Smith-Corona led the electric revolution, bringing features like automatic correction tape and touch-sensitive keys. Yet even as technology advanced, many users remained fiercely loyal to their trusty manuals, preferring the tactile feedback and direct connection between hand and page. Why do you think that sense of touch mattered so much to so many, even as newer options appeared? An often forgotten chapter of typewriter history also came alive in this decade. The portables. Gone were the days of massive desk-bound behemoths. In their place, lightweight plastic and metal models, some weighing less than 10 pounds and arriving in bright colors, remember those cheery turquoise or sunshine yellow cases, made it possible to take your writing anywhere. College students lugged portable royals in padded bags, aspiring authors typed first drafts at coffee tables or park benches, while parents crafted family newsletters in the quiet buzz after dinner. Do you recall pushing your portable under the bed to make extra space, or perhaps taking it along on a summer trip, determined to finally write that story you'd been thinking about? But the innovations of the early 80s didn't happen in a vacuum. The world itself was changing fast. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, MTV blared on televisions, and computers were quietly beginning to enter white-collar offices. Even so, typewriters remained the heartbeat of correspondence, business, and creativity. Every town had at least one repair shop, stacks of fresh ribbons were sold at the neighborhood stationer, and job listings almost always asked for typing 60 WPM minimum, a badge of skill as valuable as computer literacy is today. You might not believe this, but in 1980 the percentage of American high school students enrolled in typing classes actually reached its historic peak. It's proof of how vital the machine remained, even on the edge of a digital revolution. Yet with all this progress, nostalgia tinges our memories of the typewriter with something more personal, a sense of accomplishment and dignity that came from wrestling ideas into ink. For many, the act of typing was an intimate ritual, rolling crisp paper into the platen, adjusting the margins just so, and finding that gentle, mechanical rhythm that made even long reports feel like an act of creation. Perhaps you recall the sound of your parents' typewriter echoing late into the evening, or maybe you were the one up past bedtime, finishing an essay or a heartfelt letter. Did you ever leave a surprise note for someone, typed out in perfect lines, hidden under a pillow or slipped into a lunch pail? As the decade progressed, a new generation appeared, fascinated by both the magic and the mechanics. Kids and grandkids admired the dance of metal arms and ink ribbons, learning how to thread paper and avoid smudges. Some even delighted in taking old typewriters apart, just to see how they worked inside, discovering a hidden world of springs, levers, and careful engineering. One surprising fact: many typewriter repairmen now retired began their careers as teenage tinkerers, fixing their families' machines on weekends before graduating to professional service calls. The typewriter was, in a sense, a tutor of patience and curiosity. It all paints a vivid picture, the 1980s as a decade when the typewriter was both a living artifact and a daily necessity, a machine equally at home in the executive suite, the school typing lab, and the corner of a crowded kitchen. The progression from towering cast-iron relics to sleek, humming portables mirrors America's own journey through the 20th century, constantly evolving but never forgetting the pride of a job well done or a letter sent off in your own hand. How many of your cherished memories are tied to the steady rhythm of typewriter keys? Did one of these trusty machines help shape the person you became? But the historical journey, remarkable as it is, only tells part of the tale. What truly set the typewriters of the 1980s apart were the rapidly advancing features and technological leaps that unfolded across the decade. Just as people grew used to the comforting sounds and rituals, a wave of improvements transformed the typewriting experience for millions. Next, let's explore the dazzling array of innovations that made 1980s typewriters so unique, and discover the clever solutions that solved common headaches for everyday users. As we draw our journey through the world of 1980s typewriters to a close, it's remarkable to consider how deeply these machines shaped our everyday lives. We've revisited a time when typewriters were more than office fixtures. They were steadfast companions in the art of communication, sitting proudly on desks, kitchen tables, and bedside stands across the country. Whether tapping out business letters, school reports, cherished poems, or heartfelt notes, each keystroke echoed the values of diligence, creativity, and personal pride. The decade saw typewriters evolve from heavy cast-iron relics to sleek electric marvels equipped with all the latest innovations, automatic correction, whisper-quiet keys, and lightweight portability, reminding us how invention kept pace with progress even as the world braced for the computer age. Yet for all their advances, these typewriters never lost their soul. The satisfying sound of each letter landing, the tactile resistance of the keys, and the simple joy of pulling a perfectly typed sheet from the carriage. These everyday rituals made the act of writing both satisfying and memorable. There was a sense of ceremony in rolling in a fresh sheet of paper, carefully aligning the margins and getting lost in the rhythm of words forming across the page. For many, learning to type was a rite of passage, whether in a bustling high school classroom or hunched over the family's prized portable at home, teaching patience, accuracy, and perseverance. And even in a time when the first computers began creating a buzz, the typewriter remained a trusted bridge between what was familiar and what was possible. We remember with fondness those lively afternoons spent fixing jammed type bars, swapping out ribbons, or tinkering with the mechanics. Inside, moments that blurred the line between work and play, frustration and simple wonder. Through all these memories, the typewriter stands as a symbol of a uniquely hands-on era, where each page bore not just words, but a little of our personality, effort, and care. As the world has moved on to sleek screens and silent keyboards, it's worth asking, what did we gain, and perhaps what did we lose, when we tucked those trusty typewriters away? Did the act of writing feel somehow different, more personal, or more permanent when you had to commit each word with the press of a key? Did the soft click of the return carriage at the end of a line feel like a small but satisfying victory? Take a moment to remember your own stories. Was there a particular essay, letter, or project that made your typewriter feel like an old friend? We'd love to hear about the moments when these remarkable machines were part of your family's daily rhythm or a stepping stone in your own journey. Share your favorite memories or the quirks of your family's typewriter in the comments below. It could be the sound of the keys in the quiet hours, the thrill of your first error-free page, or the way a handwritten correction added charm to every draft. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more trips down memory lane, and share it with friends who appreciate the craftsmanship and spirit of yesterday. There's much more to discover in the stories and objects that shaped who we are. Because even as technology races forward, the sound of a typewriter's bell and the memories it stirs reminds us that some things are truly timeless.